A reading from the second book of Samuel. King David said to Joab and the leaders of the army who were with him, "Tour all the tribes in Israel from Dan to Beersheba, and register the people that I may know their number." Joab then reported to the king the number of people registered in Israel, 800,000 men fit for military service, in Judah 500,000. Afterward, however, David regretted having numbered the people and said to the Lord, "I have sinned grievously in what I have done, but now, Lord, forgive the guilt of your servant, for I have been very foolish." When David arose in the morning, the Lord had spoken to the prophet Gad, David's seer, saying, "Go and say to David, this is what the Lord says. I offer you 3 alternatives. Choose one of them, and I will inflict it on you." Gad then went to David to inform him. He asked, "Do you want a 3 years famine to come upon your land, or to flee from your enemy 3 months while he pursues you, or to have 3 days pestilence in your land? Now consider and decide what I must reply to him who sent me." David answered Gad, "I am in very serious difficulty. Let us fall by the hand of God, for he is most merciful. But let me not fall by the hand of man." Thus David chose the pestilence. Now it was the time of the wheat harvest, when the plague broke out among the people. The Lord then sent a pestilence over Israel from morning until the time appointed, and 70,000 of the people from Dan to Beersheba died. But when the angel stretched forth his hand toward Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord regretted the calamity and said to the angel causing the destruction among the people, "Enough now, stay your hand." The angel of the Lord was then standing at the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. When David saw the angel who was striking the people, he said to the Lord, "It is I who have sinned. It is I, the shepherd, who have done wrong. But these are sheep. What have they done? Punish me and my kindred." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Responsorial Psalm. Lord, forgive the wrong I have done.
Lord, forgive the wrong that I have done.
Blessed is he whose fault is taken away, whose sin is covered. Blessed the man to whom the Lord imputes not guilt, in whose spirit there is no guile. Then I acknowledged my sin to you, my guilt I covered not. I said, I confess my faults to the Lord, and you took away the guilt of my sin.
Lord, forgive the wrong I have done.
For this shall every faithful man pray to you in time of stress. Though deep waters overflow, they shall not reach him.
Lord, forgive the wrong that I have done.
You are my shelter. From distress you will preserve me. With glad cries of freedom, you will ring me round.
Lord, forgive the wrong that I have done. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark. Jesus departed from there and came to his native place, accompanied by his disciples. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astonished. They said, "Where did this man get all this? What kind of wisdom has been given to him? What mighty deeds are wrought by his hands? Is he not the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? Are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his native place and among his own kin and his own house." So he was not able to perform any mighty deed there apart from curing a few sick people by laying hands on them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. The Gospel of the Lord. It's hard to know what in the world is wrong with what David is doing in this first reading. Okay, so we have to try to unpack it. First of all, can you imagine that Israel at this time is probably not much bigger than, say, New Jersey, and the total count of people ready for military service is 1.3 million? Eek, that's quite a lot. That's quite a lot. So let's just try to sort this out. Because in point of fact, God orders, much earlier in the Old Testament, a census of the people when they're in the desert. Okay? So what's going on? David is counting the people also. It was okay once before, now it's not okay. What's going on? This is a difficult thing to try to understand. It is parallel, in its own way, to another kind of set of contradictions, if you like. Okay? We know the second commandment, right? You will not make a graven image of anything in the sky above or on the earth below or whatever. And no sooner does the commandment get given than what happens? Well, they make the molten golden calf. Okay? No good. Big punishment there. Yet, just a little bit later on, in the story of the wanderings in the desert, we find that the way to be cured of bites from the seraph serpents is for Moses to make a bronze serpent. What's going on with that? That's a graven image. You know? I think that the only way we can understand the distinctions that are going on here with the census on the one hand, with those images on the other, is that it's not so much what you do, it is rather, is God commanding you to do it or not? Or are you taking other kinds of initiatives for your own purposes that are contrary to God's purposes? And I think that to the extent that we can take content from this story from 2 Samuel to bring it to our own lives, I think that's one way of trying to do it. To understand that our own initiatives are not always in line with God's thoughts and desires. Mother Teresa was famous for saying, as everyone knows, the extent of the poverty that her sisters live in because they want to be ministers to and sharers of the lives of the poorest of the poor. And so Mother Teresa in an interview once said, there's nothing wrong with living in a palace so long as it's God that put you into the palace, not you yourself choosing to want something like that. And that's the image of faith of almost all the great saints. Ignatius of Loyola, especially in the Spiritual Exercises, talks about that. How much so that you can prefer this or that. Makes no difference. Whatever produces the glory of God, the greater glory of God. And so I think that if we look at it from that point of view, that we can see that David's egotism, I suppose, counting for himself people that are actually God's people, that's not the way we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be in tune much more with God's desires for us. So we can offer the rest of this Eucharist today, celebrating it and asking the Lord to help us to be people who don't take the initiative on our own so much as listen to his call and his inclinations for us. So let us stand and pray.